Hello and welcome. Tonight, National Economic Council asked President Bola Tinubu to withdraw the tax reforms bill before the National Assembly, even as the presidency says the bill is not against the North. The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission recovers over 248 billion naira from proceeds of crime in the last 1 year. And 10 persons killed from a building collapse in the Oyo State capital, Ibadan, with 8 others receiving treatment for various injuries. On business news tonight, federal government issues new 9-month policy to allow Nigerians deposit dollars held outside the formal banking system to back into the financial system with effect from October the 31st.
On sports news tonight, Manchester United managerial target Ruben Amorim says no decision on his future will be made until his club, Sporting Lisbon, play on Friday.
And from the nation's capital, INEC chairman Professor Mahmood Yakubu says the commission has identified some potential flashpoints in Ondo State ahead of the governorship election.
And in international news from London, Spain is reeling from what has been described as one of the worst natural disasters in its recent history.
A few days after northern governors voiced their reservations about President Bola Tinubu's tax reform bills currently before the National Assembly, the National Economic Council has advised the president to withdraw the bill in order to allow for broader consultation. At a meeting presided over by Vice President Kashim Shettima in Abuja today, members of the council agreed that withdrawing the bill will pave the way for more comprehensive consultation and consensus building among key stakeholders. The recommendation follows a presentation by the chairman of the Presidential Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms Committee, Mr. Taiwo Oyedele. Our correspondent, Larry Lasisi, reports.
State governors, ministers, and other members of the National Economic Council arriving at the council chamber in the State House. With the arrival of the Vice President, the meeting commences. Almost 5 hours later, a delegation arrives to outline the key resolutions reached.
Council therefore recommend the need to withdraw the bill currently before the National Assembly on tax reforms, so that we can have wider consultations and also build consensus.
NEC also emphasized the need for increased collaboration between state and federal agencies in response to the national emergency caused by flooding.
To date, there are about 34 states have been affected, 217 local governments, 1,374,557 persons already affected, and 740,743 were displaced nationwide, 321 persons dead, and 2,854 injured. About 201,000 houses affected, and 258,000 cultivated farmlands also destroyed.
The Minister of Finance briefed on interventions being taken to address the high cost of living in the country.
These direct transfers to the people on the social register.
We sincerely apologize for that freezing in that report, but we'll definitely come back to it later. Meanwhile, the presidency says the proposed tax reform bill is not in any way against the northern region, but rather designed to create a fairer system that will benefit all states. In a statement by presidential spokesman Bayo Ononuga, the ongoing tax reform seeks to correct the inequity in the current derivation model as a basis for distributing VAT revenue. According to the presidency, the new policy initiatives are aimed at streamlining Nigeria's tax administration processes, enhancing efficiency, and eliminating redundancies across the nation's tax operations. The statement further states that the reforms being proposed are critical to improving the lives of Nigerians and were not put forward by President Tinubu to undermine any part of the country. Still on the cost of living, the Nigerian Governors Forum says it is not unmindful of the pains Nigerians are currently going through to make ends meet. Speaking after a meeting that lasted throughout the night, the governors say they would support any effort towards having more local crude oil refining capacity. The governor's position follows the brief from the Group Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, Mr. Mele Kyari, at a meeting in Abuja. Governor Hope Uzodinma of Imo State, who spoke on behalf of the forum, also gave the assurances of governors to support the policies of the federal government, expressing hope for a better outcome soon.
I don't think that you or me will be happy as a Nigerian, an OPEC member, producing crude oil, relying on importation for our people to make use of petroleum products. So we must encourage the homegrown solution that the president just introduced. Encouraging Dangote refinery, we should repair our Port Harcourt refinery, repair our Warri refinery, repair our Kaduna refinery, and then produce what we eat and eat what we produce. We shouldn't rely on importation of fuel. For me, it is an aberration, an issue, to rely on importation of petroleum products as an oil-producing country. Which other member of OPEC country of our status is not refining crude oil in their country? So we shouldn't encourage that. I think I want to support buying petroleum product in Naira, buying crude oil in Naira, refining it here. If you refine petroleum products locally, you create jobs for our people. We sympathize with our people. We know that there's hardship in the country. We also appreciate the reforms being carried out by the president. Our prayer is that as soon as possible, that the relief we are looking for should come.
All right, let's take it back to our lead story, where the National Economic Council has advised the president to withdraw the bill in order to allow for broader consultation. Our correspondent Larry Lasisi now reports.
State governors, ministers, and other members of the National Economic Council arriving at the council chamber in the State House. With the arrival of the vice president, the meeting commences. Almost 5 hours later, a delegation arrives to outline the key resolutions reached.
Council therefore recommend the need to withdraw the bill currently before the National Assembly on tax reforms, so that we can have wider consultations and also build consensus.
NEC also emphasized the need for increased collaboration between state and federal agencies in response to the national emergency caused by flooding.
To date, there are about 34 states have been affected, 217 local governments, 1,374,557 persons already affected, and 740,743 were displaced nationwide, 321 persons dead, and 2,854 injured. About 201,000 houses affected, and 258,000 cultivated farmlands also destroyed.
The Minister of Finance briefed on interventions being taken to address the high cost of living in the country.
These direct transfers to the people on the social register that has been put together by all levels of government and is being verified. And so people are paid after they have been uniquely identified biometrically, and they are paid digitally through a bank account or mobile wallet. And those payments have been rolled out. We have reached 5 million households, 25 million Nigerians, and first and second payments are being made. Food is critical, and we all know about the increased cost of food at this particular time. And it's a question of affordability and availability, and it's all about supply. We do have a short-term program for millers to bring in raw materials, brown rice in this instance, to be able to mill and sell. And we are watching, because it's going to be duty-free and levy-free, the price will be lower, and we will monitor very carefully.
State governors were encouraged to enroll in a program that is being supported by the World Bank and geared towards providing infrastructure and services to internally displaced persons and host communities across the country. From the Presidential Villa, Lanre Lasisi, Channels Television News.
In Oyo State, at least 10 persons have been killed in a building collapse that took place at Jegede Olunloyo area of Onara local government area in the early hours of today. Now, the General Manager of Oyo State Fire Services, Akinyemi Akinyenka, says the agency received distress calls from the people in the neighborhood at about 2 a.m. during the heavy downpour. 8 other persons with various degrees of injuries are currently receiving treatment at the hospital.
Residents of Jegede area of Olunloyo are in shock and mourning the loss of at least 10 residents of the area in this collapsed building, which happened in the wee hours of the day. The news of those who did not make it out of the collapsed building was unpleasant for their relatives. The building, situated at number 24, Zone A, Jegede, Olunloyo, in Onuara local government area of Oyo State, was said to have collapsed in the early hours of the day during a heavy downpour in the area. Residents started making frantic efforts to get authorities so that those trapped could be rescued. But by the time help arrived from men of the fire service, the police and allied emergency services, 10 bodies were evacuated from the rubble.
I mobilized all the agencies that can assist us on the incident. And they all came en masse and timely. And they rescued, at least they rescued about 9 now has been in the hospital. 9 people are in the hospital now. Some mothers. We have a critical condition of a boy. And the Ministry of Health has moved that boy, including 2 psychiatric patients, and one man also. Making 4 of them, the Ministry of Health have moved them to the General Hospital Ring Road. This is a highly disastrous incident.
The owner of the building is at the hospital receiving treatment at the moment. His wife told journalists that his children and some grandchildren lost their lives in the unfortunate incident. The Oyo State Commissioner for Lands, Housing and Urban Development, however, believes the building must have been distressed before the eventual collapse.
And to forestall occurrence of this ugly incident, that's why His Excellency Governor Makinde approved recently what I will call building amnesty, whereby buildings in the state are expected to have a building approval.
Meanwhile, the Oyo State Police Command in a release says investigation into the matter is underway, but in the meantime, adequate security has been put in place in the area to prevent hoodlums from taking over the incident scene and to protect the lives and property of other residents within the jurisdiction.
In part 2 after the break, Sickle Cell Foundation Nigeria, in partnership with the Lagos University Teaching Hospital, achieves its first set of bone marrow transplants in Lagos. Please stay with us. Welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 on Channels Television, broadcasting live from Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. National Economic Council asked President Bola Tinubu to withdraw the tax reforms bill before the National Assembly, even as the presidency says the bill is not against the North. The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission recovers over 248 billion naira from proceeds of crime in the last 1 year. 10 persons killed from a building collapse in the Oyo State capital of Ibadan, with 8 others receiving treatment for various injuries. And at least 158 persons have been killed after flash floods hit parts of Spain, particularly devastating communities in Valencia. Over 248 billion naira from proceeds of crime in the last 1 year has been recovered, and that's coming from the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC. The Director, Public Affairs, Mr. Wilson Uwajare, made this known while giving an update on the achievements of the Commission since the appointment of Mr. Ola Olukoyede as chairman. He adds that the Commission has submitted its report to the National Assembly and will prosecute all crimes that fall under the scope of the Commission, no matter how small.
In terms of asset recovery, quite a lot has been done by the Commission in the last 1 year. For monetary recovery, for instance, I want to report that in the last 1 year, the EFCC recorded, in terms of the Naira recovery part of it, 248 billion, 750 million, 49,365 Naira. The dollar component amounts to 105,423,190 US dollars. We also have a recovery in terms of pounds recovery to 3,133 British pounds. There is also a euro component of it, 172,547 euro. There are other foreign currencies that I don't think I should go through all of that. You have recoveries in Australian dollars and yuan and several other currencies.
The Sickle Cell Foundation Nigeria, in partnership with the Lagos University Teaching Hospital, has achieved its first set of bone marrow transplants in Lagos. The care for the sickle cell disorder is set to reduce child mortality and medical tourism for the condition. Our correspondent, Mary Alali Yusuf, reports.
Bone marrow transplant. Talking about.
Members of the press, staff of the Sickle Cell Foundation Nigeria, and other concerned individuals are here to mark the foundation's milestone.
From when you indicate a willingness to undergo the procedure.
It is a matter of great importance that there is now a cure for a condition that kills 2/3 of those living with it before their 5th birthday. Speaking virtually from Houston, Texas, this is what the chairman of the foundation opens the meeting with.
I am delighted and thankful to inform you that after weeks of meticulous, painstaking expert care, both patients have now been discharged from the hospital where will continue to be followed up. Sickle cell disorder remains a significant public health problem globally, affecting nearly 100 million people and accounting for over 50% of the deaths among those with the most severe form of the disease.
The foundation, equipped to handle cases of younger people, has exceeded expectations by performing the bone marrow transplant on not just a 7-year-old, but a 20-year-old as well. The national director and CEO of the organization reads the reaction of a parent as both families want to protect their privacy.
I am deeply thankful to Sickle Cell Foundation Nigeria for their dedication in making this cure possible and accessible, turning hope into reality for us and for so many others. It is hard to put into words how grateful I feel. For me, this encapsulates the essence of how this mother feels. The joy on her face when I see her speaks volumes. And one of the things she also says is her child is 7 years old, by the way, is now putting on weight.
Members of the foundation's board stress that bone marrow transplant is the apex of care. But most people would benefit from managing the condition with medication and behavioral changes.
So regular anti-malaria prophylaxis to prevent episodes of malaria that triggers crisis, treatment of infections, adequate follow-up in clinics, providing information about self-care. Things like that are important.
And this is evidenced by Mrs. Aino Abimbola, who has lived with the condition all her life and is now 70 years old.
Sickle cell is not a death sentence. You must be able to manage your life. Don't do the don't-dos. Take your vitamins, take your drugs.
The benefits of a bone marrow transplant include freedom from painful crises and chest syndromes and other systemic ills, as well as freedom from the inconvenience of missed school days and the obvious burden to families. Not everyone will be eligible for a bone marrow transplant, but everyone can manage the sickle cell disorder with prescribed medication and support. Mary Alale Yusuf, Channels Television News.
Let's now head to the nation's capital, and Terry Kumi is standing by to give us the latest from our Abuja studios. Over to you, Terry.
Well, thank you very much, Ayo. Ahead of the Ondo State governorship election, the chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, Professor Mahmood Yakubu, says the commission has identified some potential flashpoints in the state and is working with security agencies for effective conflict mapping. Professor Yakubu stated this during the fourth quarterly meeting with civil society organizations in Abuja. He expressed satisfaction with improvements to the voter accreditation process and result upload processes. He called on civil society organizations to support the Commission's efforts to conduct free and fair elections.
As we approach the Ondo State governorship election, there will be further improvements, especially in the areas of logistics, for the movement of personnel and materials for both land and riverine locations to enable the prompt commencement of polls as well as the management of the processes on election day, from voting to declaration of result. Already mock accreditation of voters and result upload to the IREV has been scheduled for Wednesday, 6 November 2024 in 12 polling units across 6 local government areas in 3 senatorial districts across Ondo State. There has been no major incident of election-related violence known to the Commission in Ondo State so far. However, we are aware of flashpoints in some local government areas to which we have already drawn the attention of the security agencies. At the same time, I wish to remind you of your obligations as observers by complying with the Commission's rules of engagement for accredited election observers. I wish to reiterate that the Commission reserves the right to withdraw the accreditation of any individual observer or group that violates the Code of Conduct for election observation.
The Minister of the Federal Capital Territory says from January 2025, vehicles rendering cab services without the FCT collar will be barred from operating in the metropolis. The minister made this disclosure at the Federal Capital Development Authority headquarters during the commissioning of 80 vehicles, which is part of the Youth Empowerment Program by the FCTA.
The Federal Capital Territory Administration is taking a break from flag-off of infrastructure projects to this flag-off of youth empowerment. This is the FCTA's initiative to create jobs for the youths.
The distributions of these vehicles are as follows. We have 20 hires, we have 30 SUV, and we have 30 Suzuki. The whole idea is to gradually do away with the use of keke napep in areas like Guzapi, Maitama, and Asokoro.
The special guest of honor, who is the former governor of Abia State, Okezie Ikpeazu, lauded this initiative.
This kind of gesture to our youth not only empowers them today, but it gives hope to other youth in FCT and across Nigeria that someday the wheel of fortune will shine in their direction and also they will be empowered.
The FCT minister mounts the podium with a piece of advice for the beneficiaries.
Beneficiaries, don't be ashamed. Don't be ashamed that they gave you that tomorrow. Look, what's important is to feed your family, not to be involved in one crime or the other.
He also issues a warning to cab service providers in the metropolis.
From January next year, there will be nobody that will operate as a taxi driver or a bus driver without having the approval from security, without security profiling you, and without going on with Abuja color. So nothing like using any vehicle on the road. No, we won't allow that.
Done with his speech, the FCT minister hands over the keys to the beneficiaries and proceeds to cut the ceremonial tape. These vehicles being distributed today by the FCT administration is a new transportation scheme adopted to eradicate motorcycles and tricycles in hybrid areas of the nation's capital. Kumbi Aboluwade, Channels Television News.
Now, the organized labor in Kaduna State has commended Governor Sani for approving the sum of 72,000 naira as minimum wage for the state workforce. Speaking to Channels Television at a joint meeting, the Kaduna State Chairman of the Nigeria Labour Congress, Ayuba Suleiman, and Secretary of the Trade Union Congress, Abdullahi Mohammed, said the governor's approval of the new minimum wage, which will start from November 2024, is a significant boost to the welfare of Kaduna workers.
On assumption of office, Governor Sani promised to prioritize the welfare of civil servants in the state, considering their impact and importance to the success of his administration. When the national minimum wage was signed into law by President Bola Tinubu in July 2024, Governor Sani began negotiations with the organized labor, and on Thursday, October the 31st, approved the sum of 72,000 as minimum wage for the state civil servants. This approval is exciting members of the Nigeria Labour Congress and Trade Union Congress. They describe it as a demonstration of the governor's commitment to enhancing the lives and welfare of workers and a testament to his efforts in promoting fair labor practices.
On behalf of my State Administrative Council members, the State Executive Council, and all workers in Kaduna State, we want to say a big appreciation to His Excellency, the only Comrade Governor, Governor Distinguished Senator Sani, for approving the 72,000 as a national minimum wage for Kaduna State workers. We are happy, we are glad, and we appreciate him a lot. It will go a long way to boost the morale of workers in Kaduna State and to really energize them to put more for the progress of the state.
The labor unions also praised Governor Sani for purchasing over 100 CNG buses for free transportation of civil servants in order to ease their plight as a result of the petrol price increase.
The issue of this fuel subsidy, the impact is more on transportation. People are seriously trekking from their offices and their business places. And this one will go a long way to assist the citizens of Kaduna State and the workers at large. So we appreciate him for that. And we need more to that, by God's grace, if there is chance. And you can see it on the ground now, that we didn't drag much on the minimum wage agreement. They're going to make a pronouncement, which we feel is a very good step forward, and that's why we appreciate him.
A joint management committee consisting of representatives of organized labor, NLC and TUC, and the state government has been set up to manage the free transportation scheme for civil servants.
Still ahead on the news at 10, federal government secures 2.8 billion naira grant from Google to boost artificial intelligence talent development in the country. That's on business news. Please stay with us. Welcome back to the news at 10. The Court of Appeal in Abuja has reserved judgment in an appeal filed by the indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, challenging its proscription as a terrorist organization by the federal government. A three-man panel of the court led by Justice Hama Barka adjourned the case for judgment after the federal government and IPOB, through their respective lawyers, adopted their final briefs of argument. IPOB is praying the appellate court to set aside in its entirety the decision of the late former Chief Judge of the Federal High Court, Justice Abdul Abdukafarati, which on September 15, 2017 outlawed its activities in Nigeria. While urging the appellate court to allow the appeal, IPOB's lawyer argued that the organization was denied fair hearing. Counsel to the federal government, who denied the allegation, prayed the appellate court to dismiss the appeal. And that's all from the nation's capital. Back to you, Ayo.
Many thanks, Terry. Edo State Governor Godwin Obaseki says the acquisition of land titles not only gives peace of mind and security to the owner, but also the opportunity to value the property. Governor Obaseki noted that the certificate of occupancy can also stand as good collateral for individuals who intend to secure bank credits and loans to do business. He was speaking to journalists after the commissioning ceremony of the Edo Infrastructure Hub in Benin City, the Edo State capital.
Facts about CFO. First, it's in an environment where the law is not as formed as the way it should be, particularly enforcement of law. It's always good to secure yourself. So if you have something and you don't have proof of ownership, it's like having a car and you don't have a proof of ownership of the car. Somebody can stop you tomorrow and say, this is my car, leave, get out of my car. The same thing as land. If you own land, you bought land, then one of the most ideal forms of evidence of ownership has to be your title, the C of O. And once you have that, it's easy to value what you have, and it's also very easy to transfer. And that is what we see has happened here. Many people who now have title, proper title like C of O that can be easily verified, can use that as collateral to get credit to do other things they want to do. So it's very important that first, it gives you that rest of mind that this property I own, I really own it. And then secondly, if you say, oh, do you have collateral? If you need money, if you need cash, you need credit, you then say, okay, yes, I have this is the value. And it's easy to check, to confirm your ownership. It's easy to document, and so for you to sign forms to pledge, and then you get what you want. So it's about releasing that capital, that value which you are tying down by just sitting on land.
A licensed banking app for teenagers, At10, has been launched by Wema Bank PLC. According to the Chief Digital Officer of Wema Bank, Mr. Shegun Adeni, At10 will bring teenagers into the financial ecosystem, give them financial independence under parental control, and also allows the teenagers to learn about finances and financial planning for the future.
The need for financial inclusivity for teenagers between 13 and 17 years is what necessitated this gathering.
Creating applications for you all.
The teenagers here are not left alone as they're supported by well-known faces in Nigeria's entertainment industry and by the management and officials of Wema Bank PLC, the bank behind the launch of Nigeria's first licensed banking app for teenagers, At10.
What would you experience in there? You get a chance to learn about how best to deploy your money. You get your own independence, so you will have your cards, you will have your your mobile banking app for those of you that are old enough to have phones, and you would be able to make payments and control what you spend your money on all by yourself.
The At10 app by Wema is exciting news for the teenagers in the house.
The moment I knew about the At10 app, I was thrilled to know that I can get my own debit card, save for anything I want at my own pace, get a sneak peek into financial independence even before I become an adult. Plus, many other opportunities for teens. Thank you, Wema Bank At10 app, for this opportunity.
To get on the At10 app, teenagers are to download the app on the Play Store or Apple Store, provide the required details, and request their parent or guardian's permission via the link in the app. Or the parent or guardian can log into the At10 app to share the link with their teenagers.
Innovation is at the core of what we do at Wema, and digital is our raison d'etre. We looked to try and solve a number of problems that had been in the societies that we live for decades. One, financial inclusivity for our teenagers from a young age. And the second was also give them financial knowledge as they grow through their years and become adults.
We had the colo, the little, but the real proper saving was done by the parents. So I think it's a good idea to get the children involved early. And then there's something that I really like about the WEMA one, the Alert Explore, is that parents have an input.
As part of activities to spice up the day, a golden seat winner emerges. The management of Wema Bank PLC is assuring teenagers and their parents or guardians of a fruitful experience with Alert Explore app as the teenagers grow their financial knowledge.
The Senate is to begin a 10-day pre-budget oversight of ministries, departments and agencies starting from next Tuesday, November the 5th. The President of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, made the announcement during plenary. The lawmakers are to resume on November the 19th to consider the medium-term expenditure framework. Meanwhile, the Senate has reconstituted its ad hoc committee investigating the alleged economic sabotage in the Nigerian petroleum industry. Our National Assembly correspondent, Gloria Umezoke, reports.
Converging on the upper chamber for the last plenary of the week, lawmakers zero in attention on a motion by the Senate's leader on the need to harmonize investigation on the alleged economic sabotage in the petroleum industry.
There is need for the ad hoc committee, for the ad hoc committees of the two chambers to work jointly to avoid duplication and clash in the discharge of their assignment. The Senate resolves to 1. Recapture the title of the ad hoc committee to National Assembly Joint Ad hoc Committee to investigate alleged economic sabotage in the Nigerian petroleum industry.
Those in favor of this recommendation of this prayer, say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it.
The reconstitution comes months after the setup of the ad hoc committee to probe the sector and at a time when speculations became rife that major stakeholders in the industry are making efforts to halt the probe by lawmakers.
Session to discuss matters of.
The Senate also considered the report of the Committee on Agricultural Colleges on the Federal University of Agriculture and Tropical Studies in Osun State. However, the report by the Committee on Tertiary Institutions and TED Fund on the David Umahi University, Ebonyi State, was declined.
In all the institutions we have passed so far, we have not seen the one that bears somebody's name. I don't know why this particular one will come with the name of a serving minister of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So there are issues to be discussed. So this bill is accordingly stepped down for further consultations.
The lawmakers then proceed to an executive session. When plenary resumed, the President of the Senate made an announcement.
The Senate equally decided to suspend plenary to be able to go on pre-budget oversight functions beginning from the Tuesday, the 5th day of November 2024. And thereafter, for about 10 days. This will take us to the 15th.
Upon resumption, lawmakers are expected to receive the medium-term expenditure framework, which is usually presented before the budget, expected to be submitted by the executive upon their resumption in 2 weeks. Gloria Umezoke, Channels Television News.
Let's get the latest from the world of business with Joka Rogers.
Thank you, Ayotunde. Welcome to Business News. The federal government has unveiled a new policy that would permit Nigerians who currently hold dollars outside the formal banking system to bring those funds into the financial system. Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Wale Edun, who made this known today at the National Economic Council meeting chaired by Vice President Kashim Shettima, says such individuals have a 9-month grace period to comply with the directive without attracting legal liability or financial penalties. He explained that the new initiative aims to address the rising cost of commodities influenced by foreign exchange rate, driven by demand and supply dynamics. Meanwhile, the federal government has secured a $2.8 billion grant from Google to boost artificial intelligence talent development in the country. The Minister of Communications, Innovations and Digital Economy, Bosun Tijani, who announced the partnership in Abuja today, says the fund will help close the unemployment gap and lessen the economic hardship. It's part of Google's $5.8 million commitment to support digital skills programs across sub-Saharan Africa, and comes a month after the government partnered with Google to launch a $100 million AI fund initiative in the country. And State Governor Bassi Otu has proposed 498 billion naira as the state's budget for the 2025 fiscal year. Speaking during the presentation of the budget at the State House of Assembly, the governor explained that the proposed budget, tagged Budget of Sustainable Growth, earmarked 328 billion, that's 6% as capital expenditure, 170 billion, 34% for recurrent expenditure.
It is therefore in the spirit of the shared values of commitment, stewardship, and communal prosperity that I present the 2025 Cross-River State Income and Expenditure Forecast for your perusal and subsequent approval.
Well, more than 225 billion naira is lost to the impact of profit by investors at the domestic bourse today, as it extends a bearish trend for a fourth consecutive day. Laddie Williams has the details.
Hello and welcome to the Stock Market Report. Well, the final trading week of October, it's closing in red, but for the sectoral performance, we're seeing the banking counter there able to recover some of that loss and outperforming the all-share index. 1.27%, the oil and gas counter not left out with corner there, adding to share price. Consumer goods marginally down. We know this counter going through a lot at this point. Let's look at the all-share index, 0.38% down. That's a close there for the last trading day of October, 97,651 points. Market cap still at 59 trillion. Then we see the market move today. Boa Cement, 97 naira 80 kobo to close, adding to the downside action we see. I also see the likes of the new kid on the block. There's Ardell Holdings also shedding about 10% today. So all of this adding to this downturn we see for this last trading day. So there you have it. For the month of October, the all-share index is down about 0.9% at this point. So it's safe to say the bears dominated October. See you in November.
That's Business News tonight. Ayotunde, back to you.
Thank you so much, Joke. Wares and beauty products made from local ingredients and raw materials were the focus of the second day of the United Nations Tourism Congress holding in Freetown, Sierra Leone. Following the theme of the event, women have been given priority in showing their goods.
The United Nations Tourism Congress opens an exhibition on the second day of the event. Women who have turned mostly local raw materials into products have the floor. Beauty and fashion top the list of products, and the women say the visibility here has a lot of potentials.
Being a disabled woman, I've been doing this for quite a long time, but I've not been having this kind of platform to showcase my business outside there, so the limitation has been seen. But coming to this exhibition, I've seen a kind of improvement and people that have used my product outside, because I used to hack my products on the street and all. Okay. And of course you can see now I'm holding crutch, so the mobility is difficult. So for me to have such opportunity to come out here to showcase my business, it's a great success.
The networking is amazing. Like, I've met people from different regions. I've met some old customers. I've made some new customers. So I'm really thankful for the ministry for putting this together. It's amazing. I mean, just putting women out there and showing us, that we can collaborate and how things, can be done.
We're quite impressed with the output Nigeria's former Minister of Information and Tourism, Mr. Lai Mohammed, has been attending the Congress and is happy with the approach adopted.
Yes, we're here to discuss, women in tourism, beyond empowerment to education, finance and innovation. And I have found the entire 2 days so far very exciting, informative, and it shows the real potential of women in tourism in Africa in particular.
The Ministry of Tourism and Cultural Affairs of the Republic of Sierra Leone is also using this event as an opportunity to showcase the country's way of life. Ini John Mekwa, Channels Television News.
At least 158 people have died after flash floods hit parts of Spain, 155 in Valencia, with 2 more deaths in Castilla-La Mancha and 1 in Andalusia. Unfortunately, more heavy rain is predicted for the region and other areas on the northeast coast. Here's Samuel Drizzy with more international news in Around the World in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel's studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. Spain is reeling from what has been described as one of the worst natural disasters in its recent history. Rescue workers are struggling to find those feared missing, and officials say it's not clear how many people are still unaccounted for. Hundreds of soldiers have been deployed to help with the rescue efforts. Some places can only be reached by helicopter. Here, a baby being hoisted up from floodwaters. And here, cars on a highway in Valencia in the aftermath of the flooding, piled up after being tossed around like toys in the torrential waters. Some local officials have complained that the flood warnings came too late. Spain's Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez said that those affected would not be abandoned and urged the public to stay at home, saying the storm is not yet over. There are fears the death toll will rise further beyond 95. 3 days of mourning have been declared for those who have lost their lives. Meanwhile, Taiwan has been shut down ahead of the arrival of storm Typhoon Kongray, with all cities and counties declaring a day off for what is expected to be the largest storm by size in 30 years. Taiwan's weather administration labelled the storm a strong typhoon, the most powerful storm level for Taiwan, adding it would be the biggest typhoon in size to hit the island since 1996. Warnings for destructive winds of more than 160 kilometers per hour were issued in the eastern county of Taitung, whose outlying Lanyu Island recorded gusts above 260 kilometers per hour before some of the wind barometers there went offline. Mudslides triggered by torrential rain hit the mountainous area in eastern Taiwan's Huilien as high waves crushed coastal areas. Israeli strikes have killed 19 people, including 8 women, around Lebanon's eastern city of Baalbek. That's according to the country's health ministry. It came hours after tens of thousands of residents fled in response to evacuation orders issued by the Israeli military that covered the entire city and 2 neighboring towns. Mayor Mustafa Al-Shel said that more than 20 strikes were reported in the Baalbek area, 5 inside the city itself, where there is a UNESCO-listed ancient Roman temple complex. The Israeli military said it had struck Hezbollah command and control centers and infrastructure in southern Lebanon. Aerial footage shows a massive column of smoke as a fire engulfed a shopping center in Sao Paulo in Brazil. The blaze spread across 18,000 square meters and destroyed more than 200 stores, local media reported, citing the fire brigade's estimates. The smoke rose more than 150 meters high and part of the shopping center's roof collapsed. Firefighters were able to completely extinguish the flames 15 hours after the blaze started. The marathon contest to replace Rishi Sunak as Conservative leader has ended, with the ballot of party members closing a few hours ago. Tory members are choosing between the former Business Secretary Kemi Badenoch and the ex-Immigration Minister Robert Jenrick after 4 other candidates were eliminated in a series of votes by the party's MPs. Ms. Badenoch is the favourite to win, but Robert Jenrick has insisted the contest is close, saying we're chasing down every vote. The winner of the race will be announced on Saturday morning, almost 4 months after the crushing general election defeat that triggered Mr. Sunak's resignation. And a pool overlooking the Trevi Fountain in Italy and Rome has been installed to collect the coins tossed by tourists through the maintenance works on one of Italy's most famous attractions. The marble monument was emptied to allow for work to preserve the 18th century fountain. Still, the municipality of Rome has devised an alternative option for those who don't want to give up on the good omen tradition. The fountain still remains visible to tourists, and a footbridge will soon be installed to let visitors admire the monument from a closer perspective. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the channel's studios in Lagos.
Many thanks indeed, Simon, and welcome to Sports News. President of the Nigerian Football Federation, Ibrahim Gusau, wants home-based players to brace up for more friendlies following their impressive display against Algeria and the 2-legged friendlies in Ikene, Ogun State, and here in Lagos. Now, only 6 foreign-based players were invited in the 25-player list for the games, which the 9-time African champions triumphed 2-0 and 4-1 in both legs.
Well, the key thing is that, a lot of Nigerians are clamoring for the home-based players to be injected into the men's Super Falcons. And I feel the only way we can do that is by giving them opportunity to compete in this kind of international friendly. Because when you go to the men's side, we have a tournament that is called CHAN by CAF. But in the female side, we don't have that kind of opportunity. So therefore, this is the only environment we can create for them to showcase themselves so that our coaches can see how they can inject some of these local girls into the mainstream of the Super Falcons. And that's the aim. And we're not going to stop there. By the grace of God, at the end of November, we also have a window. And I'm planning to see that I organize another friendly match for them.
From Ibrahim Gusau to Shehu Diko, that's the new chairman of the National Sports Commission. He's assuring sports enthusiasts that the country's journey towards a sustainable sports economy has just begun. Mr. Diko says his immediate action points include structural organization of the commission, the restructuring of sports federations, and most critically commends the process of amending the NSC Act to align with international best practices.
We have a larger objective, a larger vision, which is to harness the potentials of a sports economy in Nigeria. And therefore, there are a lot of steps, a lot of action points that we need to take. But the fundamental, we have to quickly, the first step is to work on the legal issue, because we need to improve on the legal framework and get it sorted very well to provide the enabling environment for us to drive to the next level and to achieve what we want to achieve. And then, as we said, the objective of what we are going to do stand on 3 pillars. The first one is we have to understand our sports international assets. So everybody have to key in, everybody have to give you the concessions, the support, the whatever privileges sports need to get, they should get.
To club football now, Ruben Amorim says there will be clarification over his suspected move to Manchester United after Sporting's game against Estrela on Friday. Amorim is expected to remain in charge at the Portuguese side until the next international break scheduled for November 11 to 19. There remains confusion over whether a deal has been reportedly completed for Amorim to take over at Old Trafford, although Sporting has issued a statement to the Lisbon Stock Exchange confirming United were willing to meet his release clause of €10 million. And that's your Sports News tonight. I'm Kelly Egiga. He's back to you today.
And the main news again. The National Economic Council today asked President Bola Tinubu to withdraw the tax reforms bill before the National Assembly, just as the presidency said the bill is not against the North. We also told you that 10 persons have been killed from a building collapse in the Oyo state capital of Ibadan, with 8 others receiving treatment for various injuries. That's the news at 10 tonight. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Ayo Tunde Balogun. You have a good night.